The Conway Regional Health System pregame show continues. It is our roundtable discussion. Joining me are Levi, Gilbert, and Tim Roach. They're the voices of the Wampus Cats, as busy a cats as you'll find. Excited about tonight's game. It is senior night, Little Rock Christian, the opponent. Before we look at the other new opponent in 7A Central, let's look at the other new opponent in 7A Central. Last week at Pulaski Academy, guys, that was an impressive victory. Impressive in a lot of ways, especially defensively.
You know, going into it, I really thought that we would win the game. I thought we should be favored. But if you had told me that we would hold Pulaski Academy to 0 points in the first half, I never would have believed that. And 12 on the night. I'll let Tim talk about the defense here in a second because there's so much to talk about. But you know, what really impressed me was the performance from Wesley Tapp. I mean, this is only his second start ever, and it's really, I mean, in some ways, it felt like his first start because this was the big time opponent. You knew it was going to be a tough place to play, and I mean, it was a challenge because PA was throwing everything they could almost every play, and I mean, he still had 225 yards passing, and just helped move the offense along. And made some amazing throws. We were up high on the home press box, so we had a different angle than we've had in some of these games. And there were 2 or 3 times he was running close to us, so like to our boundary. So his off throwing arm, and the way he was able to turn his body and still get enough zip on those passes, and they were long passes on the sideline. It was so impressive. And just the fact that he had to go in there and do that and help carry this thing along. I was so impressed with what he did. And just the poise that he showed all night long, because it was a hard night to be quarterback against that defense.
Defensively, you're playing against a team that's a specialty kind of team. They do things different than anybody else out there. And so you have to prepare differently. We had to rush differently. We had to cover differently, all those things. And they put a game plan together, our coaches did, that was an amazing, amazing effort and game plan. We were patient in our controlled rush. We covered like a glove. Now, we got a few penalties, 18 penalties to be exact, for 190 yards. However, and a lot of those were on defense, but we played very close to their receivers, didn't let them breathe all night long. We kept the quarterback in trouble most of the night, came up with some big plays. You know, the pick on the second play from scrimmage set the tone, I think, for the rest of the night in terms of, you want to really try a double pass, a double swing pass? Yeah, no. So defensively, we did everything we wanted to do. 0 points in the first half, 12 altogether. And nobody that I've talked to can remember the last time that was done to PA. Our defense was a shutdown defense.
So, guys, it was a great effort last week. And now this week, it is senior night. It's Little Rock Christian, a team that's had a lot of success, obviously, or they wouldn't be in the 7A Central right now. But they've come up against it, and they took it on the chin when they played Bryant. That was a tough game for them at home. Now tonight they get us. What are you thinking as we go into this one for the Wampus Cats?
Well, I'm hoping it's another tough night for Little Rock Christian, just like it was when they played Bryant, which I think if we play up to our potential and play the game we want to play, I think it could turn into something like that. So, you know, they remind me a lot of Southwest a little bit. You know, a lot of speed. They've got some threats at receiver, got a really good quarterback in Kemp Keller. And they remind me a little bit about PA too, just in terms of numbers and not having a lot of depth. So I think if we can really lean on Christian like we did on PA late in the second half, I know it's senior night, but I'm expecting another huge night for Trey Harris tonight in this running game. And Trey's coming off a great game last week. I mean, he rushed for 3 touchdowns, had the passing touchdown on the double pass from Max Owen. I think Trey could really eat well tonight. And hopefully, if things go to plan, I'm hoping we only have to see Trey in the first half.
These guys are very athletic. They're not the biggest team in the world, and their numbers don't play out like you talked about, Levi, but they're very athletic and very fast. And so we're going to have, from a speed perspective, we're going to have to match that. They have a good running back. Defensively and offensively, I think it starts in the front and on the front lines. If we can lean on them, by the time we get to the second half, hopefully they've worn down to the point where we can just do a few things and get this thing over with and move on. But this is a team that you have to play, I think, be prepared to play 4 quarters for. And if we happen to get up and start moving the ball well offensively and shutting them down defensively, it could be a good night for your Wampus Cats.
Week 9's always interesting because you've got that week 10 game and we've got a huge rivalry game. They've got a huge rivalry game. It's easy to kind of start looking ahead too fast, but you got to take care of business tonight. Guys, real briefly, just some thoughts on this senior class. They were the ones who they're into their sophomore year, all of a sudden find out they've got a brand new coach, and that brand new coach is Buck James. And it's been an interesting ride for this group of seniors. What are some thoughts on those guys?
Well, I think when you hear Coach James talk about these guys, and we get to hear him talk about them some off air and then some on air, there's a lot of special guys in this group and a lot of guys that he just doesn't have to worry about. They're just great kids and they're going to do what needs to be done week in and week out, do their part. And I think last week was a real indication to me, especially on the defensive side, how much this class has grown. The way they played assignment football and they did not let PA run the smoke and mirrors, or at least they tried to. It did not affect them. They have really grown, I think, a lot mentally in the way they play football. And so that's what I'm going to remember most. I mean, studs all around, but the way they've grown in their football IQ has been impressive just in the second year under Coach James and man, some special guys in this group.
Yeah, and I would think also physically they've grown as well. I mean, you had to go from a process that really worked hard in the weight room to one that is insane in the weight room. That's a lot to ask for from 16, 17, and 18-year-olds, and they've accepted it. They had 2 years to deal with that. They've all physically changed. You can tell the difference. So they've dedicated themselves. So what Levi's talking about in terms of mentally dedicating themselves into the ball game, I think they did the same thing physically, and it's showing in the results.
All right, guys, thanks. Tonight, senior night festivities will start. We'll start at 6:15 with the pregame show. Senior night festivities probably around 6:25. We'll have our normal pregame that you will watch with senior night. The senior spotlight is Noah Files. Coach James will be with us as always. We'll have Tim's Three Things. We'll have the kickoff, starting lineup. It's all coming up tonight. Week 9, Conway against Little Rock Christian tonight live on Conway Corp.